recording, please. Thanks. Good evening. Thank you all for coming. I think I know everybody. I'm Gail Spar, and I'm part of the leadership development team. We'll meet everybody. We'll all meet each other in the next little bit. But I want to thank you all for being here. We wanted to share some information with you and give you a chance to ask questions and so forth. So we're planning on spending somewhere up to an hour and a half. I don't know exactly how long it'll take, depending on how many questions and how much discussion we get into. But first of all, I would like to introduce our president of our board, Susan Johnston, to say a few words. Susan?
Oh, it's good to see you, familiar faces. I want to thank you so much, not just for being here tonight for this meeting, but for agreeing to the work that you're taking on. Our teams and committees are our lifeblood. They're where the action is, and they are where our potential lies. You're probably aware that volunteers are a dying breed. So many families have two working parents, and somehow even those of us who are retired stay way too busy. So as we head into this new year, you are where the energy lies. It'll bring us back to the strength and vitality that we look for. I can't wait to see what you accomplish. And I look forward to working with you to accomplish it. I plan to be at Sunday's in-person session, so I'm not going to stick around this evening, but I know that you'll have a great workshop, and I hope I'll see you Sunday morning.
Which takes us to our opening words, our chalice lighting. And the opening words are from Jason Cook. We are seekers on a quest to discover truth and meaning. Sometimes we think we found it, wrapped up, glimmering with newness, straight off the intellectual assembly line. All the answers right here for us and others if they'd only listen. But truth has a way of coming in disguise, sometimes wearing rags and sometimes finery, but so often cloaked from our immediate sight. And sometimes that which we have rejected, that which we have let go of, or decided was only for others, but not us, can be our teacher. Let our time of worship be an acknowledgement, our time together this evening, be an acknowledgement of the never-ending journey toward truth and meaning, and our appreciation of those we learn from along the way. Bear with us, folks. I'm waiting on a slide. Why we're here, as always, to build community. Give you some nuts and bolts of how you actually get things you need. Direct you toward the resources that you'll need. Continue our efforts toward shared ministry.
All right, I'm Scott, and we are going to go through the church's provisional covenant. And I'd like it if we could, I don't know how well we will sync, but if we could, we can all read this together. So we covenant together in the spirit of love
and freedom.
We gather in safe
and
compassionate
community,
seeking our spiritual truths.
We affirm our
interdependence, celebrate our differences,
sonic voice,
and create a thoughtful and harmonious voice for liberal religion.
through the practice
of our 8 principles
economic,
promote social, economic, and environmental justice and continue our legacy of respect and acceptance.
Okay, and if it's okay with everybody, we would like to adopt this as our covenant for this time together tonight. So, and then I'm going to quickly go over our mission and vision. And if I could, somebody would like to volunteer to maybe read our mission. You can just dive in if you're willing.
I will volunteer. We gather to create community, nurture spiritual growth, and act on our values. Together, guided by reason and inspired by love, we celebrate diversity, confront oppression, and promote environmental and social justice.
Okay, and then someone else who could read our provisional covenant or provisional vision, I'm sorry. And there it is. And this is 2 pages. So maybe someone read the first page and then we can.
I'll do the first page. We
Okay,
are a vibrant, growing church ministering to our members, our community, and our world. We are a social justice beacon in Nashville, showing up to support our mission. We live and spread our liberal faith through living our 8 principles. We welcome all to join us in our courageous dream for justice and a better world.
and then if anybody can just read these as I put them up, that would be great.
I will. There's joy in what we do. We are fertile ground for growth. We are not afraid of the hard work. We take risks for social justice. We thrive in our church home.
All right, thank you. Now we're gonna give it to Marguerite.
And we're talking tag teams here and some teams here, and sometimes it's a tag team. So I want to throw it back to Gail. If she unfreezes. Did we lose Gail? There, Gail.
Doing my best to get in here. We're going to do introductions and we missed those. So I and somehow I got kicked out, but I'm back. So if you would, I'd like each of us to introduce ourselves. What's your name? If you prefer, you want to tell us your pronouns that you prefer. What teams are you part of at First UU? And if you know, for instance, what council are you part of? So I'll call on people one at a time and we'll do it that way. So Bill, let me start with you.
Hi, I'm Bill Latimer. I'm married to Scott Weaver, and been in the church since the early 90s, and I am part of the Safe Congregation Committee.
Which is part of the?
I'm not really sure.
It's not, Gail.
Okay.
I think we're pretty much independent.
Okay, good, thanks. Richard.
I'm Richard Bird. I use he, him pronouns. And like Bill, I've been around since the early 90s. So it's been around a while and I've cycled through a lot of different committees. And I'm now entering my 2nd time on the board. I will be treasurer of the board this year. I just got through being the stewardship chair for a couple of years, and we need a new stewardship chair. So anybody that is interested, please speak up at some point. But that's what I'm doing currently.
Lauren.
I'm having trouble hearing. Okay, I'm Lori Riddle, and I've been a member of this church for 6 years and a long-term Unitarian. And currently, I've become part of the worship committee and the A team.
Thank you. Does it help you turn volume up on your speakers? Can you turn the volume up on your speakers?
Gail, you're kind of quiet, actually.
Yeah, it's your voice. It's hardest to hear.
Oh dear.
Hey, Gail, you sound a little muffled.
Yeah.
Oh, well, let's see what happens. I got a new thing and I thought it was okay. Scott, did it sound this way when we were talking this afternoon?
It did, but I'm not having a problem hearing you right now, but you are a
Well,
little quieter than everybody else. Just talk
Okay.
louder.
I will. I'll talk loud. I'll get closer to the microphone and talk a little bit louder. Thanks for telling me. Cindy,
Hi, I'm Cindy Wood. I use she, her pronouns. And I'm co-chair of the Beloved Community Committee with Jenny Wolf. And our committee is part of the Program Council with Carlene. Oh, and I've been a member since 1991.
thank you. Carlene, Carlene,
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Arlene Dowell, I use she, her pronouns. I'm currently on the A team and I head up the Habitat team, and they're part of the Social Justice Network. I'm also chairing the Program Council, and as part of the Program Council chair, I serve on the board. And I'm also on the Beloved Community Committee. I'm doing too much, obviously. I've been in the church since 82.
we had a question of what is the A team? Lori mentioned it. Carlene mentioned it.
The A team is the NOAA Action Team, Nashville Organized for Action and Hope. We're kind of like a core team at our church that helps the church know what NOAA's doing and get connected to NOAA's activities in Nashville.
Thank you. Brandy,
Hi, I'm Brandy, she, her pronouns, and I have been part of the staff for a little over 6 months now, and also now overseeing membership. So part of the membership team, which is under Program Council. So
thank you. Stormy,
Me, I am Stormy Speaks. I use she, her pronouns. I've been a member of the church for 2.5 years now. I joined like 2 months before COVID started, so I came at a great time. But I've been on leadership development. Gail talked me into it pretty early on, so about 2 years now. So that's me. I work in HR currently for an engineering company, so this is right up my alley.
Marguerite,
Marguerite Mills, she, her. I work for you. I'm your religious educator, and therefore work with many committees, including leadership development. And I'm the staff liaison to the Program Council.
and Scott.
Well, I'm Scott Weaver. I go by he, him, and I am currently on the board. I'm also part of the leadership team and have also worked, although we haven't done it in a little while. I was kind of helping with Jack Bleak and a few others with Room in the Inn, which is part of social justice. And when I first came to the church in 2007, I was actually hired as a youth coordinator. And so I worked at the church for a couple of years and then moved away and came back. And so that's me.
Thanks. And I'm Gail Spar. I use she, her pronouns. And I am part of, as I said earlier, the leadership development team, but also of the larger faith committee and of the worship associates team. So that's me. All right, Marguerite. Unmute.
You're muted, Marguerite.
No, I'm not. Um,
Not now.
what's your team's purpose? And within that, how does that purpose further the FUUN mission? And don't we have another slide again with that mission on it, Scott? So that while we're talking, you can refer to the mission. So if we could go through everyone again, and in order to keep that running, I can call on folks. Carlene, would you be able to start?
Sure. I'd say Beloved Community Committee works on celebrating diversity, confronting oppression, and social justice. Is that what you want me to do? Just tell about each of the things I'm involved with and how it relates?
Yes, please.
Okay. And Habitat, I would say also, one thing I like about it is it really does celebrate diversity, economic and racial diversity, and confront suppression as far as affordable housing issues. At NOAA also, I'm more involved with NOAA's Affordable Housing Task Force. And so that definitely confronts suppression and celebrates diversity. It's an environment where we work across religions and across races and economic diversity together toward economic and social justice in Nashville. So I guess that's the main thing. As far as the board, we just try to pass policies that help us get to these, live out our values in a community that nurtures spiritual growth and helps us to act on our values as a community together.
Thank you. Cindy?
Well, Carlene expressed a lot about the Beloved Community Committee already, but I'll add to that about some of the ways that we focus on confronting oppression and celebrating diversity through what we do has to do with education within the congregation. And for example, we, for a number of years, have run the Living the Pledge to End Racism program. And I think over 100 congregants have participated in that program over the years. So that's a pretty good number. And then right now, this beginning in August, we're going to be embarking on a year-long program that's denomination-wide that I hope some of you have been hearing about, widening the circle of concern about celebrating and increasing diversity and confronting oppression in our own denomination and our own congregations. And also, so that is certainly promoting social justice, but I wanted to say about environmental justice with that. It may not immediately come to mind when you talk about confronting racial oppression, but BIPOC people, Black, Indigenous, and people of color are affected the worst by environmental injustices. So that's important to keep in mind.
Thank you. Lori?
I guess certainly the worship is at the center of trying to create community and nurture the spiritual growth of the congregation and promote, act on our values. the other aspects would be included, but I think worship itself is the heart of coming together on a Sunday morning and to try to develop our own spiritual growth and promote that. And the A team is involved with Noah in reaching out to the community and addressing some of the things that have already been talked about.
Thank you, Lori. Richard.
Well, it's often said that how we spend our money is a reflection of our values. So being on the money side of things right now, having been involved in stewardship and now being the treasurer, that's what we're doing. It's what I'm involved in is helping us to make sure that we put our values forward through the money that we spend. Of course, a lot of it has to be spent on things that aren't necessarily fun, like electricity and maintenance and that kind of thing. But we do try to make sure that committees are well funded and that we have processes to support our community, both our community in Nashville and our larger UU community through our contribution to the UUA through our annual campaign. So that's basically how I'm involved right now with our mission.
Thank you. Bill?
Well, the Safe Congregation Panel, what our job and duty is to help foster a safe congregation by promoting and administering the church's policies regarding how we behave towards each other. And these policies include honoring the children, against sexual harassment policy, discrimination policy, our disruptive behavior policy, and alcohol policy. Some people think that we only deal with children's issues, but we deal with the entire church. And it could be something where someone is in conflict with another church member, and that it would possibly be brought to the Safe Congregation Panel, and we would try to work through everything and work it out. It could be that someone is in conflict with someone on staff, and we go along the same lines. And because of the nature of this committee, a lot of the stuff we do, people are never aware that we do it unless they are directly involved, because by the nature of everything that goes on with our committee, we cannot just broadcast everything that we do.
Thank you, Bill. I want to point out just one thing, going back to when Carlene said, the word I remember is just, and I think you were referring to the role of your role on the board and the board's role. And it was saying, we just, enact policies and so forth to help things. And I think there's no just to it. I think things like the budget being a moral document. Yes, we know when we're talking about beloved community and Noah and so forth, exactly how we do these things, but the others, they're the, it's the muscle that holds everything else together. And in the interest of time, what I'm going to say to those of us who are staff and on leadership development, if there's anything we haven't covered here that you want to throw in, now would be the time. And I think it will help us segue beautifully into the next piece with Gail. And if not, then Gail, you're on.
Well, I was going, can you hear me?
Yes.
But I was going to say before we go on to the shared ministry piece was that Larger Faith, which is one of the teams that I'm part of, has a fairly key role in connecting us with all of the other, with UUs everywhere, and with all of the justice work that's being done, with community building that's being done with other UUs and so forth, as well as in our own congregation. So there's a lot of things that they do that help to further our mission. Social justice is a big piece of it, but it goes beyond that, as you probably are very well aware. Leadership development, I like to think of us as being sort of the pillars that kind of help the internal workings, so that teams can build themselves, be very high functioning. That is, they're working well together, so that they themselves can carry out whatever it is that they're trying to do to further the mission. That's how I see the ones that I'm involved with as furthering. I want to talk now about shared ministry. And Scott, just go ahead and put those all those bullets up there. We're going to talk about what it is and talk about what models we have for it, what gets in the way of it, and why do we do it. So shared ministry is actually, it's a way of people working together to meet the mission of the organization. But it's more than that. It is to do with how people take on a variety of roles, assume the work that needs to be done together. And there are, it runs a continuum, okay? So you can have one end of this continuum of shared ministry. You can have let's call it a chair of a committee who delegates various functions to the other members, and they do it. They do whatever they're asked to do. That is a way of sharing the ministry. They're helping out. At the other end of this spectrum, though, is this total collaboration in which the nominal head of the committee and all of the members of that group, that team, and now it is really a team rather than a committee, it is a real team, work together to establish the goals, to do all of the work that needs to be done, to provide feedback to one another, as well as to share the burden of what's going on. So and we've got models within our congregation of all of these things. We have committees that act just like I said at the very beginning. There is a chair. The chair may assign somebody to do take notes, or to do the chalice lighting, or to maybe help organize this particular function or whatever. But the focus is primarily on the chair, who works to get things done through other people. Okay, that's one model. But we have got all the way through variations on the rest of these models. And some of the kinds of models we see, larger faith is one. They have no chair. None of us wanted to be chair. And so we decided, well, each of us, what do we like to do? Well, Jennifer Hackett loves to put together agendas, and she's great at it. I don't mind writing the reports that go to the board. I do that. Other people volunteer to do these other things that get done each time. So we're sharing that way without having a leader who says, this is what you have to do. We just agree on what needs to be done, and people say they will do it. The leadership development has not done this recently, but we did it back, I don't know, about 3-4 years ago. That same sort of thing, in which each quarter somebody else took the job of setting the agenda, other people, and going to the council meetings and doing the other things. And we shared the work that way on a quarterly basis. That was another way of sharing ministry. And so all of these models that I've been talking about are all, they're within a team. But we've got a couple of really good models going now of the cross teams, because that's where the real shared ministry happens. You think about this, what Cindy and Carlene have been talking about with the widening the circle, that is a shared ministry within the entire congregation. Different committees are looking at this, at the various recommendations out of this. And they're saying, what part do we play in making this happen? And the whole congregation will come together as an entire group to figure out how that works. There's another initiative, Membership Revitalization, which is just now getting started. And this is one, it's starting in the program council, where all of the teams in the program council are talking about, oh, you know, membership revitalization doesn't just belong to membership committee. It belongs to all of us. We all have a role to play. So we're talking about what are those different roles? How do we make sure that we're doing everything we need to do for membership revitalization? How do we share ideas? How do we come together and coordinate all of our actions towards doing this? So those are all different models of shared ministry. So can any of y'all think of any others that I might have missed?
I think there are some things such as faith development, which is adult ed, that can simply support all of those things. Again, part of that muscle that supports the overall structure. I can also say that Children's RE is another group that has taken on the flat hierarchy. And another advantage to that, because a different member creates the agenda and runs the meeting each month, it gives everyone, even those who do not perceive themselves to be, quote, leaders, because the perception of leader is one who runs things, it gives everyone a chance to try that on in a safe space with their fellow committee or team or council members. So it's very third principle as well as being shared ministry.
Thank you, Marguerite. Anybody else have any additions to that? Well, why don't we, yeah.
I was going to say there's a special relationship, I think, between lay leaders, staff, and the minister also. And that I remember a long time ago hearing that described as a three-legged stool. And, you know, so they each have kind of different roles, but support each other and hold up the seat.
Good, thank you. Anything else? Well, what gets in the way of making this work well? Can you think of things that might keep this model from, or these models from being implemented in our various teams or across the congregation?
Are you asking what can get in the way of it?
Yeah, what gets in the way of shared ministry?
Well, I'm hearing, and I also understand and experience that there are sometimes people, you know, committees can kind of tend to work in silos. So it's you know, that's why the councils are so important, to be able to communicate and relate to each other so that each committee knows what the other is doing, and that we're not just kind of operating in our own little world, but we're sharing information and communicating with each other. And it's, you know, I see it in the corporate world. I see it in church. It's just kind of it tends to happen pretty easily. So it's something we have to continually kind of be aware of and find ways to combat.
And I'd like to add that I think there's more than just communication that needs to go on in those council meetings, Richard. I think that's an important piece of it. But I like the idea of group problem solving.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what is the issues that we're dealing with? How do we together deal with this? Not just, oh, well, I'm doing this party over here and I'm doing that project over there. That's a piece, but it doesn't, that's communication sharing. But I would love to see us more of what are the problems we're all facing and how can we work together to meet them. So yeah. But you're right, silos are a big piece of our problems, and they're built into the structure of what we're doing. Yeah. Do you think of anything else?
I think people don't have very much energy to devote to volunteer time. it's hard to completely understand it. I think it's complex, but everything we've been through, is people are coming back. I mean, just the restart of the church and trying to get people enthusiastic about being involved in teams.
And I can think of two things.
Can I stop you a minute, Marguerite?
Sure.
Lori I think, started to say something and she got cut off. So I
Oh.
want a chance to talk. Lori?
Well, I was actually going to say something very similar to what Carlene just said. That's inertia. Just sort of, we were inactive for so long that it's hard to know how you want to get engaged or how much you want to get engaged. So I think finding the way to involve people that doesn't run the risk of overwhelming.
Good. Thank you. Marguerite?
Fear of change, which is very much amplified over these last few years, especially now as we are presumably returning to, quote, normal. And the other that I would mention is perceptions of, for lack of a better word, perceptions of power, either not wanting to give it up or not wanting to assume it.
You want to say anything more about that?
I think it goes to, quite honestly, I think it goes to this shift that we're trying to facilitate when we use the word teams, where everyone works collaboratively, where we are working together in covenanted community, where no one person stands up and says, do this on the one hand, and on the other hand, no one person stands all the way in the back and says, I don't think I'm capable, or I don't want the responsibility.
Thank you. Anybody else got some thoughts about what gets in the way? Well, I would add, and maybe this is part and parcel of what the inertia and some other things. Part of it is lack of familiarity by the leader, whoever that, the quote leader, the nominal leader of a group is, with it, and the model that is in their head is simply get in there and tell people what to do. Okay, that's one. And another is just lack of familiarity with such a model. We're having to train some people who just have not done this before. They are not familiar with that collaborative kind of approach to getting things done. And so they either tend to do it all themselves or they just dole out pieces. So all of those things are barriers to true shared ministry. The question is, why do we do it? Why do we try this? And why am I spending time talking to y'all about shared ministry? Why do we want to do it? Ideas? Lori?
Yeah, I was just, it's not quite this question. It was really back in the other question. And in that, it seems to me working collaboratively means getting to know people at a closer level. Really, you have to know what that person's strengths are, or you have to know what will work in that setting. I think one of the challenges is getting reacquainted with each other.
That is beautiful. Yeah. And does that not work towards building community if we do it right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. That's a beautiful input. Anybody else got an idea? Why do we do it?
I think one good reason for doing it is it can help prevent burnout. There's a lot of people who do a lot of things in church and they do it for years and years and years. And when the role can be spread out a little. It's nice to be able to have a month or two where you don't have to worry about doing something. So that's, I think, a good reason to do it.
Terrific. Yep, absolutely. What else?
Well,
I'll get-
I think this relates to what Scott just said, but you can't get the number of people involved in teams and other leadership, whatever other things need to be done in our congregation, if they see other people being burned out and they are afraid to get involved. And then that's to me is part of a potential death spiral of the congregation.
Yep.
Because it's more than just attending services. Far more.
That's passive, isn't it?
I think you have better buy-in. You know, you're invested if you're involved. You know, it's not just somebody else's church. You own it.
I like that. Yep.
In
I'll add,
one of my past roles, I've been on nominating a few times, and nominating committee is probably one of the harder committees in the church because we're trying to find the chairs for a lot of the committees. And there were people that we would ask to be a chair of a committee, and more times than not, the first word out of their mouth was, "Do you think I'm qualified to do that? Do you think I really should be on that committee?" I'm not sure how we go about getting the thing out there that it's like, you know, take a challenge, take a dare. It's like, go for it. Just see what's maybe is your passion and go in that direction. And also try to get not necessarily younger members, but members who have not been in the church for 20 or 30 years, because it seems like that's the pool of volunteers that gets recycled quite a bit.
Yep. There's another aspect to the shared ministry, and that I have found, and this is in the worship committee. The worship associates had a very collaborative arrangement of, if you will, agreement, relationship. That's what I'm trying to say, with the minister, in which we all talked together about the different themes and brought different perspectives, and that was such a spiritual, uplifting kind of experience for all of us to go through that. So it enhanced what we were getting out of our participation. It made it much more, it connected us much more to the church and to the whole spiritual world. So that's another reason to do it. Anybody think of anything else?
I have a thought, but before that, I noticed that Lori unmuted, and I don't know, Lori, if you had something you wanted to add.
No, I just never remuted.
I am going to very briefly get up on one of my soapboxes, which is that one of the reasons we do something like church is that as human beings, we are hardwired to make meaning of our lives. And one of those things is to discover what our gifts are and figure out how to bring them to the table. And so shared ministry is all about helping people to discover those gifts, setting that table, making sure there's space at it. So all the way along that journey that is making meaning of one's own life are myriad ways to contribute both to your own experience and that of others. And I think that's shared ministry.
Thank you, Marguerite. All of these things, all of these are reasons why I hope you will take these back to your own teams and talk to them about it. Are you in full shared ministry? Is it one that you're comfortable with? Is it one that everybody's comfortable with? How can you share more? Because I think we've all got room to share more. Okay. Stormy,
That's me. We're going to talk a little bit now in a small group about leadership. And I think that we all hinted at that a little bit in a lot of our comments in the last section. So Gail, are you kind of thinking that we all kind of stay in the same group and talk about it? Sounds good to me. So, I believe as, Marguerite mentioned, a lot of times we think of a leader as just the person who is in charge. Of course, that's not necessarily the case all the time. You can be a leader in a lot of different ways. You can be a, stand up whenever you know something is wrong and other people aren't calling that out. You're leading with integrity there. So there's lots of ways to demonstrate, leadership other than, being the loudest person in the room or the boss, so to speak. So I kind of want to start out, in y'all's mind, I'm going to, go a little bit off script here, but just in general, what does leadership mean to you guys? Don't all talk at once.
Well, I look at someone who is willing to step up and do something. Something needs to be done, and they're willing to step up and say, I'll help or I'll do that.
That's
yeah,
servant
and-
leadership example. Yeah, exactly.
yeah. So that's one of them. And it's ironic because I'm not this, I guess if I'm a committee co-chair, I'm probably considered to be part of church leadership, but I always think of the images of a confident person, and I'm actually a very anxious, sort of insecure person myself, but I've always had that image. Like they'll stick their neck out and they're sure of what they say.
But I'm sorry to jump in here, but I have to.
No, go ahead, Marguerite.
Thank you. But Cindy, in the course of that, what you do so beautifully is you invite others in, because you're not imagining yourself to be that confident, in charge person. And I go back to 20 years ago when I was still new to the church, and you said you would co-chair social justice if there was someone else to do it with, at which point you pointed to me. You pointed nominating to me, and I had no idea what was going on. But here I am today. And I could say that part of that began with you, because you do it without ego and you invite others in, and it's a lovely thing.
Thank you. It's hard to unmute sometimes.
Anybody else have any ideas or definitions of what leadership is to them, or what they think of leadership as?
One of the things that I would look for in leadership is having a trust that that person has some feeling of what a group interests are, or the attitudes, that they could accurately reflect what the rest of the people around them are thinking or looking towards, and provide leadership in the direction that they will have followers.
Right, borders on a little bit of that traditional definition there too. That's certainly part of it, because you do have to kind of break it down. There are, the leader has the followers, they build social influence, right? But we do that, and it sounds so dry whenever you put it like that, because the technical definition of leadership is, like that book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. You're essentially, amassing a group of followers and guiding them, but it's not that clinical, I don't think. Leaders help themselves, other people do the right thing, set direction, build a vision, create things, and you don't necessarily have to be a leader entitled to do those things. So you can lead in those small ways too. So I like that. Anybody else have anything else they want to contribute to that question before we move on?
Yes, the only thing that I'd add is passion. But if you have the insight to follow your passions, I was like Cindy for a long time. I was afraid I would not have the skills to do it, or somebody else would be. I'm not a bold person, but lead more by example or something. But if you have a passion, I feel like you need to empower yourself to make it happen, to be a part of making it happen. Put yourself out there.
Absolutely. That's some of it too, is that courage and bravery to do that. You hear a lot of times the courage to lead. That very much is true. It takes, a little bit of a gumption in order to stick your neck out there. But I've found, it's worth it more often than not. And my mom has always told me, what's the worst they can do is say no. So I kind of infuse that into everything. And kind of on that, we've talked a little bit about what, leadership looks like, what your image is of a leader. I kind of want to get a little bit more, kind of on point with this. But to you guys, who are some leaders that y'all admire? So for instance, one of mine is Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Always comes to mind as a leader. People, when she didn't, run a company or anything like that, but really led by example in her role on the Supreme Court. John McCain to me was a leader, standing up and ultimately doing the right thing whenever, all the odds were against him, that kind of thing. So for you guys, what are some leaders in y'all's mind that you think are leaders that we can take some lessons from, and that you think are examples of good and bad leaders? How about that?
I think standing up for your values and your convictions and being consistent with that is important for a leader.
Absolutely.
Some of the people that you mentioned that Marguerite put in the chat, there's a people that we all admire because they do have very clear values that they work hard to live up to. And it's not always popular or easy, but they continue to do it.
Exactly.
And we've seen an awful lot of bad ones that, you either question their values or they don't seem to be very consistent about what they do value.
Exactly.
If you've ever seen any of the videos with Desmond Tutu and the Dalai Lama together.
Oh gosh, unstoppable team there.
Exactly. And there are three things that I think we could all use more of and that they exemplify. One is humility, another is curiosity, and the third is just a great sense of humor.
I found that humor goes a really long way. So deal. And then, kind of on that too, what does a strong team look like to you guys? Obviously, a leader has to have a team. Otherwise, there is nothing to lead, right? So the folks on a team are just as important as the leader in every respect. So to you guys, what does a strong team look like? What are some characteristics? And this is actually funny enough, a question that I ask the people that I interview. What are the characteristics of a team that you think makes it successful at the end of the day?
Oh, I think everyone willing to lift his own weight and to volunteer to do things, not to wait to be called on, but to say, I can do that, or here's where I think we could do something different, or anything like that. Someone who is willing to step up and they feel comfortable doing it. They don't feel like they're going to be vulnerable. They don't feel like they're going to be criticized, even when they disagree with perhaps what some of the other folks in that team say.
Right. It's a good way to breed toxicity and resentment and really, get nothing done if you don't speak up, if you're worried there. You know, it's, you can always hash out differences and do that in a constructive way. So absolutely. Communication, you know, they say communication is the key. It really truly is. As long as you can kind of, you know, articulate what's on your mind, what you're thinking, I think that helps go a long way.
I think
And
one
letting go of your ego too.
Sorry.
Sorry, Scott.
I was just going to say the one thing I think that makes a strong team is someone who also can say or can notice when someone else possibly is doing too much and then offer to help that person, you know, take something off their shoulders, you know. But I think that can make a strong team when the team can actually work together and see that with each other.
Absolutely.
And something else that can make a good, strong team is listening. Listen to what all the other team members have to say. Let them speak, let them finish before you jump in, because I have been parts of things where, like, in the middle of somebody doing something, all of a sudden somebody else just starts talking on top of them, and that is that can be very destructive, and it's like somebody's trying to take control, where sometimes if you actually listen to the entire thought, what you just thought you needed to say, you don't.
Right, exactly.
I think another characteristic of a strong team is that they have a vision. They know where they're going, they know why they're going there, and they know how you know they're willing to lay out and make adjustments if they need to, but they've got a plan to get wherever it is that they want to go to.
Right. Sense of direction.
And with that, Gail, I think there's within the team, and the emphasis can vary with the team members, but an ability to see both the forest and the trees.
All right. Anybody else have anything else? Anything leadership related, not necessarily related to these questions, that you feel like you need to chat about?
I think you have to be clear from the very beginning what your goals are. That the team has to have the same direction. You can often find undercurrents of having very different ideas about what the outcomes might look like or be, that you need to clarify what it is that it's bringing you together and what it is you're trying to achieve.
Right.
And along with that, I would add a commitment to staying at the table and working through conflict.
I wanted to add just briefly that it may sound like it's having enough people on the team to be able to accomplish the mission of that team, because I was once on the team that was way too small, and I was saying after that I was a co-chair, and it was myself and the co-chair, and then there were two other people. And after that experience, I just said, no, I never ever asked me to be a committee chair again, put it down on your paper and so on and so forth. Because it was just such an awful experience, but that led to burnout. But then when I became part of the beloved community committee, that committee is so different. And it has, you know, it doesn't have a tremendous
Sometimes you just need to find the
number.
right fit for you.
Yeah, and it also has a more collaborative structure, like what we were talking about before.
To me, one of the very basic things of a leader's role is keeping the team on track, and doing so in a manner that does not make people feel bad.
What do you mean, Bill?
Well, I mean, we've all been in committees and stuff where like there's a meeting going on and like, let's say the meeting is about the auction. And about 20 minutes into the meeting, all of a sudden somebody says something about, well, I got a new hot tub. And 30 minutes later, everybody's talking about hot tubs and nobody's talking about the auction. And to me, part of the thing that the leader can do is be like, well, you know, hey, Stormy, it's real nice that you got a hot tub. Maybe we can have a hot tub party sometime, but you know, we sort of need to get back to what the team is supposed to be doing, and let's get back
the
talking
facilitator,
about
exactly, yeah.
the auction dinner or whatever.
Absolutely.
And the reason
Sorry
I
that
said Stormy is because all of a sudden you popped up on my screen.
Yeah, that I think I had a blip in the internet and went away and then came back. So
I think the covenant helps. I just got that report. There was a commission at the UUA level. I found out about at GA that wrote something about holding each other accountable to covenant. I'm anxious to read that because I don't think I fully utilize covenant the way that we could, you know, and I'm afraid, you know, of saying, oh, you know, calling somebody out instead of calling them in. So I'm anxious to learn that skill as a leader.
great. Anybody have anything else they want to add to that last question? No? All right. Well, great conversation, everybody.
Fantastic. So let's move over to talking a little bit more about the nuts and bolts of what to expect, you know, as you guys are part of your different teams and committees. There are some special responsibilities that take part in that as far as making sure that your teams and committees function well. So the first thing that I want to talk about a little bit is governance. Some of you are familiar with what we have as an organizational chart that kind of breaks everything down as far as where our committees lie and how we can best communicate with each other in regards to that. And so the first place that you're actually going to find that is in the About Us section and then down into leadership here. So we'll click on that. And then right here, this button, organizational chart, you'll just click on that. And this is our most updated chart that we've put together. So earlier, when Gail was asking questions about which teams that you served on and which councils they were a part of, this is the explanation of that. I know that some of you guys are really familiar with this and some of you may not be as familiar with this, but I encourage you to take a good look at this and kind of familiarize yourself with it if you haven't had a chance to look at it greatly. But you'll notice that this really encourages that sense of communication and helping to break down those silos. Because as you know, a part of a different team or group, you can see that you fall underneath a council. And so if you need help, you can always reach out to the lead of that council. And then those council persons then have direct contact with the board of directors through their reports, which then gets filtered out to everybody else once decisions have been made and those policies have been set. So I just wanted to draw your attention to that. There have been a couple of minor changes that have happened just in the past couple of months. You'll notice that membership team has been moved under program council now. And there's actually a lot of changes that have happened over here in the staff section as we've been through a bit of transition. I will note in this, just because this is the section that I'm most familiar with and deal with on a daily basis, that we are doing a little bit of restructuring ourselves with our staff, trying to encourage that opportunity for better communication, better collaboration. So you'll see that we've done a little bit of difference here as far as falling under office manager. We've pulled financial coordinator, RE and worship arts technical coordinator underneath that, just in efforts to kind of create a sense of more of an admin team to encourage that collaboration, to encourage cross trainings, so if somebody has to be out for whatever reason, somebody else can easily and quickly pick up in that space and take on that role, put on that different hat just for a brief moment to make sure those things are taken care of, which is really important. So that's the basic part of the organizational chart and the governance that we have. And like I said, I encourage you to take some time to look at that when you get a chance. The next thing that I'm going to move quickly over to in respect to our time is basically where you can find all of the leadership information that you need, all those leadership resources that you need on our website. The first thing you're going to do is go to community, and then there's a tab right here labeled leadership resources. Pretty simple to find. And the first thing I'm going to focus on is our facility use here. A lot of you all will be planning some events, planning some different meeting times, any other kind of special things that you might be doing as a part of your committee or a part of your team. You might be wondering, how in the world do I actually get that event or that meeting on the calendar? And how do we reserve our space for that? The first thing you'll do is you'll come to this page, and I encourage you to look at the little Our Calendar link. When you click on that Our Calendar, it actually pulls up our full calendar that we have for our entire organization. That way you can actually check and see, hey, what's going on? Is this going to conflict with something else that's already happening that date? And so that's just a really good thing to make sure that you're keeping an eye on and checking out before moving to complete your information so that we can actually get it on the calendar. So that second step, whenever you've looked at the calendar, is actually scheduling campus use. You'll want to click on that. And this is for everything, not just scheduling events, but if you're also wanting to use a bulletin board that we have in the social hall, if you're wanting to have tables reserved on Sunday mornings because you have a special event that's coming up and you're wanting to recruit volunteers and you want to have a table of information of signups and things of that nature, this is the place you also go to make sure that you can reserve those tables or reserve those bulletin boards, as well as reserving space and your needs for your event. So you'll basically just fill out this form with your title. What exactly are you requesting? If you've already requested it, you can actually come back in here and do an update if there's a quick change as far as time or date or whatever your needs are. If you need some additional needs that you didn't realize at the time that you would have, you come back in here and complete that out. You'll need to make sure that there's a person of contact from your committee or your team that's going to be, the direct form of communication between myself and the committee about this event. And they'll need to put their contact information so we can ensure that we are responding saying, we've got that on the calendar and we have reserved that space for you. Or, that space has actually already been reserved. What are some other options that you might be interested in looking at? You'll fill in the dates, your start time, end time. If it's a recurring event, you'll place that there. Also, it's really important that you make sure to put in how much time you'll need for setup and also for cleanup, so that we're not running into two groups overlapping each other too quickly. And we also allow you to do a first choice for the rooms that you want or a second choice for the rooms you want. Now, if you're interested, as I mentioned before, doing a bulletin board or tables, you'll just actually put the social hall in for your actual location. And then further down is another option to actually click on that you want to reserve a table or a bulletin board. You'll put on there how many people you expect for the meeting, a description of what it is that you're doing, just so that we're in the know. If you're having food or drink, we do have some policies in regards to alcohol. So make sure that you check if there's going to be alcohol involved so we can follow the proper processes for that and ensuring that we have monitors there for that event for you. And then also, if you need audio or visual equipment, if you need a projection screen, if you need the OWL camera, which allows you to have a large meeting and everybody still being able to see each other on Zoom as well as in person and having better sound, that's an option that's available to you. So if you click that, I'll be able to coordinate with you all the items that you need to ensure that your event or meeting can be successful. And then you can kind of provide a little bit more detail on what those needs are here. And then here is the section where you can actually reserve a table or a bulletin board. You'll click either one for that. And then if you have any additional comments, make sure to put them there. I will state that it's very, very, very important that if you do not already have a key code access to the building that you're wanting to use for your event, make sure in this comment section that you put, hey, I need a key code. So that way we can make sure that you have something available to allow you to get into the building for that time period. And then finally, just submit your request there. Usually I get to these fairly quickly. And so within a couple of hours to 24 hours, you're going to likely hear from me about your event and make sure that we get things squared away for you. If you're wanting to actually get some information out about your event, we have a lot of opportunities for you to do that using this Get the Word Out form. Again, it's following the same structure of name, email, phone number of the person that's going to be the central form of contact and communication about this event or meeting. And then you'll put in there kind of the title of the announcement that you want, some information specifically stating what it is that you want promoted about the event. You'll have even further options here to do information in addition that may not even fit up here in those characters, just to make sure that we have everything that you want promoted about this event. And then you'll actually be able to click how you want that promoted. We can do social media. You have the website posts that you can do, the TV monitors, they're in the social hall. We can create slides for that that's going on. Weekly email or e-blast that we do, we can put it in there for you. Also in the bulletin is an option as well. The last thing that you can click to do is for a pulpit announcement if you want it actually read aloud on Sunday mornings to make sure people know, hey, we've got this big thing coming up and we want as many people involved. That's a great way to do that. So you can fill out the information there stating when you want that announcement to start, when you want those announcements to end, and any other additional information that you want for that. And then don't forget to click submit the announcement to FUUN. The next section here is internal communication. This is if you are doing a lot in your specific committee or team and you want to let everybody know on the different councils what's going on, again, to ensure that that continuous communication is happening and we're not following in that same routine of silos. Making sure you're keeping people aware of how we're changing things up, we're making some additions, or we're no longer doing something that we've been doing for a long time. It's just allowing us to get that information out properly so that everybody is aware of what's happening. That form, once you click on it, is very similar to the other two forms that I've shown you, so I won't go directly into it for time purposes, but that's there and available for you. If you did a Get the Word Out announcement here and you actually have some significant changes that you want to make, there's another form here that you can complete to actually submit some extra edits or some updates for that. Again, very similar form, really self-explanatory, but that just helps us keep them separate from an actual physical announcement that we haven't received yet, as opposed to some edits to a current announcement that we already have either already set up through our modes of communication. This last part is the leadership directory. I'll give you kind of a little brief viewing of this, but it lists our staff, the board, at-large directors. Again, it lists the councils, the task force, and who is in those leadership positions. We are not currently updated on this quite yet. We're still pulling all of our contact information together that someone on the board is working on right now for us to get this updated, but it will be updated there soon. So this is a good option to refer back to that if you don't know how to contact somebody when you're looking at that organizational chart. This is a good place to go to try and find that information. The last thing I want to talk about in regards to communication is the archive files section here. It does require a password. And that password is generous hearts, all lowercase, and the words are scrunched together, so no spaces. I'm gonna put that in here right now so that it'll pull right up. And so you can see a list of basically a lot of our documents historically about things that we've done. There's journals in there from seasons of fun that you can look back on. There's digital archive files, hymns, miscellaneous correspondence that we've done, pretty much anything in regards to fun that has been done and created in the past in regards to policies, events, stewardship is a good example here. That is all here and available at your fingertips as leadership. I recommend that you take some time to go through it, see what all's in there, and if anything can be beneficial to your committee or also to your team. The next thing that I kind of want to shift over to is to look at finances. You might be wondering, okay, well, we're part of a team and a committee. We have events coming up. Obviously, we're going to actually have to purchase some things for these events or meetings or whatever it is that you're doing. So also on this same page here, you've got information in regards to finances here. If you click on the little plus button, it's going to bring up all the information you need in regards to finances. The first thing I briefly want to talk about is procedures for purchases. You might be wondering, hey, how in the world do we actually do purchasing for our events? I want to mention that there are different options. The very first option that I would highly recommend is that you check with the office. The office is here for you as a resource. Okay, and so any support that you need, we're here to help you with that, and specifically when it becomes to purchasing. So if you have something coming up and you need to buy some items, specifically if it's from Amazon or Home Depot, you'll just send those items that you want, a link to those items directly to me, and that's listed a little bit further down in this document here. But even if you're not purchasing directly from those two places, if there's other places that you want to purchase from, I highly recommend actually reaching out to the office to do that, because ultimately that is the easiest option. We have at our fingertips the tax exemption form that's needed, and we can set those up with our vendors, whoever you're purchasing from, very quickly and very easily, and get those items purchased for you. So I just want to note that we are a resource for you for that. The second option is actually doing a purchase on your own if you would like to do that. However, you absolutely need to make sure that you have that tax exempt form with you. If you're going to Kroger, if you're going to Best Buy, whatever it is that you need to go to, you'll probably need to actually go up to like that informational section they have there in the building, let them know that you have a tax exempt form, and they can set that up for you before actually making your purchase. You can even call ahead, ask them questions about that, and some of that they may be able to do over the phone for you as well. My only hitch with doing purchases on your own is that if you are doing it out of pocket on your own, you'll need to do that with cash, because a lot of times when you go somewhere and you're making a purchase and you have a tax exempt form, that tax exempt form says that purchases can only be made on the church credit card. Okay, and so we do not loan out the credit cards, and so if you're doing that, make sure that you have cash with you so that you can make those purchases, and then you can actually be reimbursed for that. Okay, so we do have an expense payment reimbursement form that you can use for those situations. Those forms can be found in those archive files, and I'll show you that here periodically in just a moment. And then also we like to keep copies in the copy room in the sanctuary building on the wall. A lot of times you'll find copies there. If you for some reason can't find the copy either on the archives or in the copy room, you can always email me and I'd be happy to send you a digital copy for easy access for that too. Okay. Whenever you're doing any kind of purchases or with reimbursement or expense payments, make sure you always keep your invoices. That's critical, and make sure to attach those to those forms when you turn them in. And then the third way that you can actually do a payment for whatever you need for a purchase, you can do an advanced check request. So if you know you've got an event coming up in a month and you're going to need to make this purchase from a vendor, and they can do check or take check, it's good to ask for an advance check request, just so that we know that that purchase is coming. That also helps us a little bit too, as far as budget concerns as well. So that's a good route to go too. This was the online ordering thing that I mentioned before with Amazon or Office Depot. Good to contact the office, and this lists here exactly what you need to send me so that we can get that ordered for you. Where do I find the forms? Again, we talked a little bit about the sales tax exempt form, the reimbursement form. Again, you can find those on the website under the archive files. And then once those are completed, you can actually put them in the administrator mailbox that's in the copy room. So if you can do that, or if you just happen to be on campus during our work time, you're welcome just to come by the office and give it directly to me, or somebody else in the office, like Hunter, who is our financial coordinator, and we can make sure to get those fully taken care of for you. Okay. This little section here at the end just tells you a little bit more about what I already mentioned in regards to making sure that you pay with cash if you have a sales tax exempt form, and you're going directly with the vendor, since we don't loan out the credit cards, and how to deal with that situation. So I'm going to quickly go back into those archive files and put in that password. Oops. And I'm going to show you just really quickly where you're going to find that information for those forms. You're going to go to budget and finance related section, and then you're going to go into forms and procedures, and you'll notice the tax exemption form is listed here, giving you again exactly what we just saw on the website about those procedures and how to go about doing expenses. And then this is the expense payment and reimbursement form. Also, as part of your committee and team, in March, we take information about your budget. If you need to make changes to your budget, this is where you can find the budget request form to complete that as well. But that's always here and available for you if you have questions about that. More information about setting up your budget, if you need to make changes to it, is available in this financial information section. Again, in the procedures and purchase part at the very top. I'm sorry, I accidentally clicked on something else, but so that's always there and available for you. The budget request form is also here too. So we try to keep things in a lot of different areas so it's quick and easy to find. If you need access to leadership development resources, in addition, like for instance, we're recording this session right now. So hopefully in the next day or two, we'll actually have this uploaded here on the website. So if you need to refer back to things that we've discussed this evening, you're going to have that available there as well. I also want to just talk about a couple of small notes in regards to the forms really quick, is that your committee chair is required to sign those reimbursement forms or expense request forms. So make sure that you're leaving enough time for yourself when you're preparing to make those purchases to get together with your committee chair so that they can sign that, and then you can leave it for us to help get that taken care of for you. Lastly, and really quickly, I just want to go over some additional notes. I don't have my slides up for this, but it's pretty quick and easy bullet points that I have. Just to note that office hours are Monday through Thursday from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. I do want to note though that we are a small staff, and so sometimes we're out and about trying to meet with people externally out of the office. So it's really good that if you're trying to plan to come in, if you could give us a call or email one of us and ask, hey, are you in the office? Just to make sure that somebody's there and present, especially right now in the summer month, as some folks are taking vacations and time off and have a lot of other things going on. So just want to make sure to note that. As far as holidays are concerned, we do our best to make sure that we get that information out via pulpit announcement and also on e-blast, so make sure you're taking notes about that when we're closed. The mailboxes in the copy room, every single team and committee has a mailbox in there. I've noticed that some information has been collecting in some of those mailboxes. So make sure you guys are checking that and tell your team members to help. Every time that they come in the building, just keep an eye on that with you as well to make sure you guys are checking for information available in your mailboxes. The copier in the copy room is available to you at all times that you're in the building. There's no passcode for that, so please help yourself as you need it. If you see any issues going on with the copier, please let me know. I'll make sure to take care of those. If you're doing a large copy project, again, the office is here for you as a resource. We are happy to help you with that. So if you want to schedule some time and you need some help trying to figure out something in regards to copying, I'm happy to meet with you to take care of that. So that's everything that I have. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. I wanted to make sure to leave at least 5 minutes for questions. Does anybody have questions about anything that we just covered?
I just put some stuff in the chat, Brandy.
Okay. Hi, Carlene. What you got?
One of the things that I've had always is a hiccup when I'm filling out the financial forms is finding out what my account number is. I've learned to write it down, but people may not know how to find that information.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, so the best routes for that would actually be, you can email me at office@firstuunash.org. You can also email Hunter, who is our financial coordinator, at financialcoordinator@firstuunash.org, and either of us can collect and get that information out to you pretty quickly. So that's
There's
fine.
another way you can look in the archives on the budget for the current year, and you will
Yes.
see line items for every committee.
Yes.
That's what I typically do.
You can also email treasurer@thefund.org. I will say though that we are about to change all the account numbers again. So even though if you've gotten used to them, I apologize, but I think we went through a big account change a few months ago and it didn't go all that well. So we're looking at another one. So we'll try to communicate those numbers. Thank you for raising that issue though. So that will be helpful to know that people do need to know what those account numbers are.
Yes. Thank you for Richard for chiming in with that. Really appreciate that. Mark Reed also asked, how does one reserve Zoom? So when we went into that submit a calendar room request, one of the locations that's actually in that form, instead of clicking Social Hall or Morgan House, there's actually a location for Zoom that you can click on that. So that lets us know that it's a Zoom event. And so that's how you can get that set up. The Zoom events do appear on the calendar unless you specifically note in the comment section at the bottom that this is a private event that you do not want listed on the calendar. So if you have things coming up that you want to keep closed and keep private for whatever reason, make sure that you're noting that in the comment section. We can make sure to keep that off of the calendar. As far as lead time for a request, really it's preferable at least 2 weeks notice, because you're going to have a lot more options as far as space is concerned. Usually within that 2-week range, things start closing as far as what rooms are available, as people are especially coming back on campus and meeting in person, as well as Zoom, doing kind of a hybrid option there. So if you are wanting to do a hybrid options, that is completely available. Just make sure that you are doing that room request, putting specifically what room that you want to use. And then at the bottom, since you're already like reserving an actual room, at the bottom also put in there that you're planning to do a hybrid in the comment section. And then you're also doing Zoom, so that we can put that in the information as well. And then you can always request the OWL camera or whatever you might need as far as AV is concerned for that hybrid session. Any other questions? Great. I know that was like really, really quick and really concise, but like I said, you can always refer back to this. There's going to be more leadership resources on that leadership page up soon, so keep an eye on that. And I'm always here for questions as a resource, whatever you need. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Brandy. Thank you. Do any of you have any other questions on everything we've covered, things that we might be able to clear up for you, or that you, obviously, I think, Scott, you want to put up the slide with our email, the next one, thank you.
Give me a second. It's being uncooperative.
Yeah.
Well, we'll just do it that way.
Okay. Anyway, we are FUUN, leadership at thefun.org. You'll reach, probably it'll come only to me at this point, but I will share it with the rest of the team, and we will be glad to help you with anything that you'd like. If you want us to do some work with your team, do some team building or any of those kinds of things, we're happy to do that. Just give us a call. And for particularly people who are new in the leadership positions, if you want to buddy somebody you can ask questions of, let us know, and we'll help you find somebody that you can work with on that. Any questions? Any final words? Okay, well, thank you all for being here. Marguerite, would you like to extinguish our chalice?
And actually, we will do it together. If everyone would unmute, we will create a glorious cacophony, which is what the youth love to do. I put the words in the chat, although I think we know them pretty well. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of
Communion.
the warmth of community, or the fire of
Commitment.
These
we
carry in
carry
our
in our
hearts
hearts
until we
are
are
together
together
again.
Thank y'all. Have a good evening.
Thank you.